It's hard to believe that just over 20 years ago, Corleone was just an ordinary Italian village of about 4,000 people. More or less like any other Southern European town where everyone knew everyone else. But in 2002, it became home to one of the most notorious mafias in history, and now life is very different. Welcome to life under the Don's rule. It's not uncommon to hear gunfire at night here. In fact, locals say it sounds like fireworks. That's because the Daimyo clan have their own unique way of dealing with traitors. Before we get into this, we'd like to thank our friend Sergio for giving us access to his amazing drone footage. He owns a bar in the town center and has lived there all his life. You'll see him later in the video. The Damiaos are a family originally from Sicily who settled here after they made a name for themselves dealing drugs in the 90s. They used their profits to purchase land, mostly farmlands, and eventually set up shop in the small town of Corleone, which, by the way, gets its name from the Godfather series and not the other way around. The thing about being part of the mafia is that once you're in, you can't really leave. If you try to escape your old life, you'll be killed. So most people in Corleone were born into the mafia and raised in its lifestyle. These days, though, the focus is mostly on gambling and extortion rather than the drug trade. When you run a town, the local businesses are pretty easy targets. If you want to open up a restaurant or a pizzeria, you've got to pay the pizzo, otherwise known as the protection money. This money is basically a bribe that ensures you won't be bombed out of business. And the worst part is, if you don't pay up, word gets around that you're a bad guy and no one will ever want to buy anything from you again. Everyone here pays the pizzo, whether they like it or not. The only question is how much. Once the Damiaos took over, they charged 3,000 euros per month for every store in town. But then, in 2017, they started charging 5,000 instead. Needless to say, everyone was furious. This was especially true of Carmelo, owner of a popular bar who decided he had enough. He refused to pay. The Daimos were unhappy about this and told Carmelo that if he did unpay them what they asked for, they would kill him. But Carmelo still said no. He wanted to stand up to these greedy gangsters. Unfortunately for him, it didn't end well. A few weeks after refusing to bend the knee, Carmelo was found dead in front of his store. He'd been shot multiple times. While the killer was never caught, everyone knew who was responsible. Still, no one would snitch on them. No one ever witnesses anything. There's never any evidence, and no one ever gets arrested. Some of the townspeople did try to fight back. For example, there was the time the place got cut off from water when someone destroyed the main pipe. It happened again a few months later. Someone even went as far as to rig up a fake ATM and divert the money straight into their own account. But none of these acts of rebellion ever succeeded. The D'Onofrio clan continued to reign supreme until February of 2021, when a bunch of police raided the town. They arrested 60 members of the clan, including 4 of the 5 brothers at the top. The police also confiscated over $15 million worth of property, including cash, cars, and jewelry. They even found a secret stash of weapons, 23 guns to be exact, hidden under the floor of a house in the middle of a cornfield. The raid was so massive that it practically emptied the town of men. When asked why they chose Corleone as their new home back in the early 2000s, one of the Daimos, Lorenzo D'Onofrio, had a simple answer: because it's a beautiful town. And he was right. Before the mafia showed up, it was like any other quiet neighborhood. Kids played football outside, friends met up for drinks after work, and families enjoyed meals on their porches.
Now the streets are empty.
The porches are abandoned, and the town looks like a ghost town. So what happened to the people? Why doesn't anyone live in Corleone anymore? Well, those who did and join the mafia have had enough of the violence and extortion and simply moved away. But those born into the mafia can't go anywhere. It's not that they aren't allowed to, it's that they don't want to. Leaving would mean abandoning their lifestyle and taking their chances somewhere else, which isn't safe either. Just ask Giuseppe Di Maria, who left Corleone in 2008 to move to Florence. He owned a winery and wanted to start fresh somewhere else. However, shortly after arriving, he was told to pay the pizzo, or else. The local thugs found him in front of his new winery and threatened him, so he sold the place and moved to another city. And guess what? The same thing happened again. This time, it was a parking lot attendant who tried to shake him down. Fed up with constantly having to watch his back, Giuseppe returned to Corleone, where he could at least feel safe amongst his own people. As you might have noticed, the people who live here today are mostly old. That's because anyone who can leave does. Young people are not sticking around. That means the town has no future. Without new blood, it will die out in a few decades. You probably think that living in a town ruled by the mafia would be scary, but it turns out that's not really the case.
Oh.
Most of the locals seem pretty happy, perhaps a little too happy. Maybe it's because they're used to it, like they just accept it as a normal part of life. Or maybe it's because they know better than to oppose the regime. One interesting thing about life here is that you can't really defend yourself. The entire town has just one cop for an entire town. What happens if you get mugged in the middle of the night? Good luck getting help. As far as we know, nothing like that has ever happened anyway. Crime is actually pretty low here. After all, if you steal something from someone, you run the risk of them finding out and beating you up. Also, since everyone here knows everyone, people are generally pretty honest. In a way, it's almost kind of peaceful. We mean, sure, there's gunshots at night and people turn up dead in the street from time to time. But there isn't really any crime. People just mind their own business and keep to themselves. Sure, you're not allowed to have your own business, but besides that, it's pretty peaceful. Some people might call this place lawless, but that isn't exactly accurate. The thing is, the law has been replaced by another set of laws, the mafia's laws. These laws are simple and brutally enforced. Don't steal, don't kill, and don't snitch. Oh, and pay your pizzo on time. Other than that, you can do pretty much whatever you want. There's no vandalism, no graffiti, no noise complaints. It's an idyllic town, just with a few corpses lying around. There are some people who don't mind this kind of life, like Antonio, the 72-year-old owner of a bar. His father opened the bar way back in 1957, and Antonio has been running it ever since. He says he doesn't mind paying the pizzo and has never had any problems with the dimios. Why did I work? I shut up. I don't interfere with anyone. I'm an old man, and I keep to myself. End quote. Others, like Francesco, are a bit more bitter. Francesco runs a farm just outside of town and has been paying the pizzo for years. He doesn't like it, but says there's nothing he can do about it. We can't do anything against them. If we make trouble, we get bombed, he says. So despite what you might think, life in a mafia town isn't all that bad. But it's definitely not for everyone. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other content.